17-year-old girl and a senior in high school. I don't have many close friends, so I am somewhat socially awkward in front of other people. This fact doesn't help me out at all, because I work in a part-time retail job where employees always have to be smiling and social, greeting the customers with much repeated phrases like, "Hello, are you finding everything okay?" Or "Is there something I can help you with today?" Most people are polite about it and simply say no, or just carry on by asking a simple question. I got used to saying this and just started to get used to the repeated responses, so I'd never expected anyone to say anything different. That is until one Friday evening. I was scheduled from 4:00 p.m. until 10:00 p.m. And it was the Friday before Christmas, so we were pretty busy as customers were rushing to finish their holiday shopping. It was just me and my other coworkers at the store, so nothing was out of the ordinary, business as usual. I was folding a table of knitted sweaters when some man, appearing to be in his mid-50s with unkempt hair and dirty clothes, smelled as if he hadn't taken a shower in months, walked up to me and asked where the ladies' underwear was. Now, this immediately caught me off guard because not only was he definitely out of place in terms of our typical customer description, but he was throwing off weird vibes, and I just wanted this interaction to be over. Right over there, sir." I pointed to an area far away from where I was standing. I didn't know where the ladies' underwear was, or if we even sold it, but I just wanted this weirdo off my back. He gave me a creepy smile and said, "Thanks, sweetheart." I was stunned, so I finished folding the table I had originally been working on and carried on throughout the rest of the women's section where I was assigned to work. A couple of hours had passed since the creep had an interaction, and by that time, I had erased it from my mind. Just as I was starting to get myself back in the holiday spirit, well, as a holiday as you can be while working retail, one of my managers called me up to the register because they needed another cashier. I replied on our earpiece and said that I would be right there. I signed into my register and organized my station. When I looked up, who was standing in front of me but the creep? He looked angry at me. At this point, I'm sure the look of sheer terror was recognizable across my face. I said, "Did you find everything okay?" I wish I hadn't, because he then replied, "No, sweetheart. I was looking for the underwear, and you told me that it was over there." He pointed in the direction that I had originally pointed out to him. "I know that you don't sell it here. I know because I was watching you. I saw it in your face that you lied to me." His tone calmed very quickly, and he said, "That's the problem with pretty young things like you, always lying to lead me on. I'll see you later, sweetheart." He gave me a wink and walked away. I was frightened. I wanted to turn to my manager and quit right then and there, but I needed to save money for college. I haven't seen that man since, and I hope I never will have to. To the creep, don't ever watch me again. The events of this story happened several years ago. During that year, I lived overseas. My company had a branch in Europe, and I decided I would work there for a year or so. For the most part, it was beautiful, and I had a great time learning about the culture and meeting new people. But during the holiday time, especially around Christmas, it could get very lonely and make me homesick. My family and friends still lived back in the United States and could not afford to come see me. Due to my job, I was stuck in Europe for the time being. On Christmas, I stayed home in my apartment and decided to watch movies. After watching Netflix for a couple of hours, I got bored and was looking for something to entertain me for a while. Quick backstory about me. When I was in high school, my friends and I used to crack the surface of the so-called dark web or deep web. We were all pretty computer savvy, and thought we were cool being able to access it at a young age. We didn't do anything besides just surfing around, as we were scared to stumble across something we shouldn't. Well, fast forward back to the present, and I hadn't done anything like that in close to 10 years. But I decided searching the dark web was just the excitement I was looking for on this quiet Christmas evening. It honestly seemed pretty harmless, and I thought, what could go wrong? I searched through dozens of dead-end links and pages, and nothing seemed to spark my interest. After an hour or so of surfing, I decided it was finally time for bed. I closed everything down on my computer and went to the bathroom. When I came out, I noticed my webcam screen was up. Being a little naive, I didn't think anything of it and just closed it out. As I turned away, it popped up again. As I stood and watched it for several seconds, trying to comprehend what was happening, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text message from a private number that said, "I see you." Beyond creeped out and starting to get worried, I decided to shut off my lights and turn the computer off. But before I could, I had an email pop up on my desktop. The email was a picture of my apartment building. I unplugged my computer, grabbed a knife from my kitchen, and stood in the corner of my apartment. Almost immediately after unplugging the computer, another text came through that said, "I hope your doors are locked." I couldn't comprehend what was happening. I was frozen in both shock and fear. All I could think of was something that happened while I was on the dark web, but I wasn't sure what. For hours, I stood in my dark apartment staring at the windows and doors. Every little noise made me jump out of my skin. Every time I heard somebody in the hall, I was getting myself ready for self-defense. This was Christmas night, in the middle of the night. At this point, there was no way there should be that much foot traffic in my hallway, but I heard it back and forth. I heard footsteps all night long, but never anybody stood in front of or knocking at my door. Finally, morning came, and I still had not slept or hardly moved all night. At about 8:30, somebody knocked on my door. I slowly approached the door, not knowing at all what to expect. As I looked through the peephole, I noticed it was my neighbor. I opened the door and greeted him. "I hope you had a nice Christmas," he said to me in an almost excited voice. I just nodded and said, "You too," in his cheerful morning voice. He then said, "Somebody dropped this letter off to me this morning and said it was for you, but they said they couldn't talk to you for some reason." I took the letter, knowing deep down where it truly came from. I asked, "What did he look like?" And he responded with, "Well, he was a she and she was pretty. You know, dark hair, pretty smile." I said thanks and shut the door. Standing right there, I opened the letter. It was a Christmas card with Santa on the front, and the inside of the card was written as follows. It started with my name, my full name, and then read as follows: "I hope you had a nice Christmas. I am sad you never came out in the hall to meet me and my friends. I guess there is always next year. Happy Christmas." I left right at that moment. I grabbed the few things I needed and checked into a hotel. I stayed a couple of nights and returned to the States. I told my bosses I was having some sort of medical emergency and that I felt more comfortable finishing out my contract in the state. I never contacted the police, and I have also never been so scared in my entire life. Every single time I get on the internet, I get a little shaky and only use it for my job and not personal use. Nothing like this has happened to me again in the years since, and thankfully, no follow-ups to this single occurrence. I still can't help but wonder what I stumbled upon that night and why I was targeted. If I can leave you with a bit of advice, don't be a novice strolling around the dark web, especially on Christmas. For Christmas, My family, some family friends, and their son, a good friend of mine, decided to stay at a hotel near the ski center. We wanted to experience snow after 2 years without seeing it, living in Greece where it's typically hot throughout the year. Upon arrival, our parents informed us that my friend and I would stay in a hotel while they would stay in a house a few minutes away. This arrangement didn't bother us as we enjoyed the freedom and quiet, and there were no available rooms for us in the house with our parents. Everything seemed normal when we checked into the hotel and received the keys to our room. The place was relatively small, with 3 entrances, one to the cafeteria, mostly locked. The main entrance never locked except at night, and a small back door providing direct access to the guest rooms. It's important to note that the room doors couldn't be securely locked due to faulty doorknobs. We stayed in room number 3 on the first floor, and the hotel had a small hallway on that floor. During the first 2 nights, sleeping there was somewhat uncomfortable as we adjusted to the new environment, but overall, the hotel felt okay. We didn't feel unsafe since there were other guests, and our parents' house was just 5 minutes away. However, on the 3rd night, I couldn't sleep, and around 5 in the morning, I felt a strong urge to protect my friend, who had been awake and anxious. Taking my phone with its flashlight on, I scanned the room and quickly went to the bathroom. When I returned, I noticed 2 things. My friend was awake and anxious too, and there were mistletoe twigs spread around the room. While I knew the staff hung mistletoe on doorknobs for Christmas, our room had an unusual amount, especially considering I hadn't noticed it being messy before. This unnerved me, but I stayed calm, turned on the lights, and spoke with my friend about his unease. He mentioned that he couldn't sleep and asked me if I had stood up in the middle of the night, gazing at him for about 5 seconds before leaving the room. Trying not to cause panic, I suggested he might have dreamt it. After calming him down, I positioned a chair near the door and stayed on my phone until daylight. I chose not to mention anything to avoid causing panic, and because we were leaving in the morning. What if, when I used my phone flashlight, someone had been there?